Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patrons, Paul to Pilot and EV Calc. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. Last November, we already had the Swedish Electricians Union saying they were going to stop servicing Tesla superchargers. Now this SuC union is saying they're mainly aiming to prevent Tesla from expanding the supercharger network. This year, Tesla has been planning to open around 20 new supercharging locations in Sweden. So now if these are going to be blocked from actually being connected to the grid, we'll see if Tesla can find a workaround for this one. I will say this one might be a bit more difficult than finding a different supplier for something like aluminum. If you'd like to support Tesla against the nonsense taking place in Oklahoma, they have this form. I'll include it below. You just click Contact Legislators, fill in your information. Hint, I am not in Oklahoma. It didn't matter, it still auto-populated this message. Then you just click Send and there you go. It only takes about 30 seconds and you don't have to be in Oklahoma. Across all of Europe for the month of January this year, full BEV market share was up to 12%. Tesla accounted for 14.5% of that BEV share in January. That's up from 10% for Tesla last year and was never higher in any first month of the quarter. On Reddit, Pristine Floor 7545 shared a new picture of an engineering vehicle from Tesla with the new upgraded performance seats for the Model 3 Plus, but in the white version. It's not the best picture ever, but you can see that the headrest is much more integrated and there's much more side bolstering support. And as we've talked about in the past, this center section here should have some sort of badging, whether it's performance, plaid, ludicrous, whatever it ends up being, that's what we might see here. Remember, Tesla's Director of Vehicle Programs, Daniel Ho, has called the Model 3 Performance a, quote, pretty special project. Last time we heard Tesla was hoping to launch this sometime in the first half of this year. The official Tesla Energy account on X has confirmed something in this post. Not only that, but Drew Baglino said, excellent summary. I just wanted to clarify, I think most people here already know this, but the Powerwall 3 is indeed using LFP cells. I still see a decent amount of confusion on this topic, so I think we can put that in the rear view for now. EV adoption just put out this chart, and we hear these numbers, but sometimes it's good to see them in context. This is showing us all-time DC fast charging ports, and Tesla at the top of the list with almost 62% of all-time DC fast chargers. This data is specific to the United States, and for January this year, Tesla is at almost 64% of all new DC fast charging ports. And we touched on this theme yesterday, but we have the sample average total hardware costs for these NEVI applications. Tesla coming in with the lowest cost per port by far at $18.6 thousand. Second lowest would be Company A at $47.1 thousand. Responding to this post from Colin where he said, still some moments of confusion, but nothing deal breaking, referring to FSD 12, Elon said these issues are addressed in version 12.3. There really were not any other issues mentioned in these videos either. We talked yesterday about that survey at Giga Berlin, how it was not binding, it was really just to get a feel on how the community was feeling. Commenting on that, Rohan Patel said there is zero impact on any future expansion plans. The zoning plan would potentially shift more freight traffic to expanded rail infrastructure, and that would be an environmental and traffic benefit for the community. He also clarified the zoning changes have nothing to do with water. There's no need for additional water for any potential expansion of the site. Giga Berlin is one of the most water efficient vehicle factories on Earth, with the ability to recycle 100% of processed water. So at least right now, no, the Giga Berlin expansion is not in any real jeopardy. You may have seen the articles talking about the highest mileage Tesla in the world, a 2014 Model S, getting over 1.1 million miles. Just wanted to point out there were 3 battery replacements during this time and 13 motor replacements. That is still, however, over 393,000 miles per battery in this vehicle that's now close to a decade old. It will be interesting to watch the next decade to see how long some of these current vehicles built in 23 and 2024 can actually last. It would be pretty awesome marketing material for Tesla to have some of these battery packs lasting in excess of 500,000 10,000 miles before needing replaced. Joe Tetmeyer shared this afternoon for the first time, just over 100 Cybertrucks were visible at Giga, Texas today. Even more were exiting the factory during his drone flight. I'm assuming most of you have already seen this clip from AI driver of FSD V12, so if you have, timestamps are below, just skip ahead. But in case you're not one of these 108,000 views, you have to see some of this Costco parking lot behavior.
It is 1000% vastly improved. It makes me feel like we're going to get the actually smart summon any day now with how it's handling parking lots, to be honest with you. Just a huge step forward compared to version 11. The next move is incredible, and I'm going to pause real quick to tell you why. So in a situation like this, where pedestrians are actively walking towards you, like the people from our right, version 11 would just get stuck. It would wait until there's absolutely no pedestrians around at all to continue going. Version 12, on the other hand, successfully shoots the gap between these pedestrians, even though they're off to our right, continuing to walk towards the car. I can already feel the comments coming in of people disagreeing with this move, but that is how you have to drive in a Costco parking lot. They didn't even look twice at us because the car did exactly what they were expecting it to do. And you'll notice the cop in front of us starts to move forward and we actually don't move with him. The car stays perfectly still because it knows to wait for this car who's backing up. It's so nice how the car isn't twitchy in situations like this anymore. As we make our way out of the parking lot from the same way we came in, a semi-truck is now there unloading and a car appears from behind it. Pretty tough situation, but version 12 actually heads towards the curb and gets within 1 foot, giving this car as much room as it can before it continues.
According to studies around the world, 8.8 million people die prematurely because of air pollution every single year. According to a study from 2023 that simulated air quality levels on a neighborhood level, showed that if just 30% of all vehicles in the Chicago region were replaced with EVs, it would save more than 1,000 lives and more than $10 billion a year due to fewer deaths related to pollution. If you want to see that actual study, it's posted on IOP Science and I'll have it linked below. At least for now, Ford has avoided another strike from the UAW, as both sides have reached a tentative agreement on a local contract for Ford's Kentucky plant. The ratification vote is tentatively scheduled to take place next week, starting February 28th. According to GM CFO, the Cadillac Lyriq has now regained eligibility for the full $7,500 tax credit. It has not, however, made it to the fuel economy official list just yet. Shout out to a subscriber of mine who sent me this, but Reuters has now won an award, the Polk Award, for its coverage of Elon's business empire. Listen to this. The staff of Reuters has received a George Polk Award for its coverage of how Elon's manufacturing operations harmed consumers, workers, and laboratory animals. The prestigious Polk Awards honor special achievement in journalism with a particular focus on investigative reporting in the public interest. The series of scoops and investigations exposed a mounting toll of worker injuries and 1 death at SpaceX, mistreatment of lab animals at Neuralink. Other stories found Tesla covered up dangerous defects in steering and suspension parts, rigged its car's in-dash driving range estimates, invaded drivers' privacy. You get the picture. You know things are broken when hit piece journalism starts winning actual awards. Today, a judge ruled that TripAdvisor will be allowed to leave Delaware and reincorporate in Nevada. The judge gave some clues as to how companies like Tesla could avoid future scrutiny if they meet 2 requirements. 1, the board must create a special committee of directors who are independent of the controlling shareholder. That committee must reach an independent determination of the best course for the company. And second, a majority of independent shareholders must ratify the board's decision in a fully informed vote. There's been some speculation that Tesla may have a hard time actually leaving Delaware without upsetting some of the shareholders. This professor said the idea to move out should probably not start with the controlling shareholder. Tesla is starting with 1 glove tied behind its back. Simply put, if there's any problem, here's what it looks like. Yes, most of the retail shareholders will support Elon in this move from Delaware to Texas. The problem is there are plenty of institutional shareholders that will often look to some of these third-party proxy companies like Glass Lewis or ISS, which, by the way, Elon refers to as ISIS. And the prevailing thought right now is that at least one of those third-party companies would recommend some of these institutional shareholders actually oppose Tesla's move from Delaware to Texas. Lastly, and I've said this before, but when it comes to Tesla putting out a proxy for the shareholders to be informed to vote on this move for Tesla from Delaware to Texas, it's going to have to be incredibly detailed, because if it's not, then any shareholder will be able just to bring a lawsuit in the future saying that, hey, I wasn't fully informed with this vote. Personally, in the end, I still think Tesla's going to find a way to reincorporate in Texas and leave Delaware. It might just be a bit of a bumpy road. Lucid announced its Q4 earnings today, and all around it's just not good. Reminding you of where we ended 2023, Lucid did 8.4 thousand when it comes to production. This is not good because for 2024, they just guided to 9,000 units produced. Now, in its slide deck, Lucid highlighted that it had around $4.8 billion of liquidity, which is what they're referring to as their total current assets. Of that number, though, only about 1.3 billion is cash and cash equivalents. Scrolling down a bit, you'll find that their total current liabilities, which are oftentimes due in the next 12 months, are just over $1 billion. But we'll say that Lucid has about $3.8 billion in liquidity after subtracting for current liabilities. For all of 2023, Lucid lost over $3 billion from operations. $736.8 million of that was in the fourth quarter alone. Simply put, on this current trajectory, if Lucid doesn't figure things out soon, they really only have just over 1 year of actual runway. Now, of course, they have nearly unlimited money from the Saudi backing, but taking that out of the equation, this business model right now is not really working. Why is that? Well, doing the math everybody loves to do, taking Lucid's loss from operations in Q4 and dividing that by the number of cars they delivered in Q4, they're losing over $424,000 per vehicle sold. And with weak guidance, that's really all you need to know. In a new interview, RJ Scaringe has confirmed that the R2 lineup will qualify for the $7,500 tax credit. Initially, R2 vehicles will be destined for the United States and Canada, but he has said that they eventually are going to be built for a global market, meaning Europe should see the R2 within the first few years. Rivian also reported earnings today, and they announced they're laying off 10% of its salaried workforce in an aim to cut costs. A limited number of non-manufacturing hourly employees will also be cut. That's the third round of layoffs for Lucid in the last roughly 2 years, and for 2023, Lucid lost over $5.4 billion for the year, and when it comes to production, it's expecting the same amount, around 57,000 vehicles for 2024. Rivian also plans to shut down its factory in Normal, Illinois around the middle of the year to upgrade the factory, and it's hoping for a 30% production boost from that shutdown. Rivian's net loss of $1.5 billion in Q4 last year was slightly better than their $1.72 billion loss in Q4 2022. Rivian reported it lost $43.3 thousand per unit delivered in the fourth quarter, but that was much improved from Q4 2022 when they lost $124.1 thousand per unit sold. It's also worth pointing out though that gross profit per unit delivered number for quarter 4 was actually worse than both quarter 2 and quarter 3 last year. They were down around a $31,000 gross profit loss per unit. Rivian ended last year with $12.3 billion in current assets, of which $7.8 billion is cash and cash equivalents. Rivian's total current liabilities sit at $2.4 billion. We also got the hotly anticipated NVIDIA earnings today, and the streak continues. They continue to dominate. Record quarterly revenue over $22 billion. The expectation was around $20 billion. Jensen Huang, their CEO, said accelerated computing and generative AI have hit the tipping point. Demand is surging worldwide across companies, industries, and nations. I mean, look at these numbers for quarter 4. 76% gross margin, $13.6 billion of operating income. NVIDIA has a slightly different fiscal year, so if you're thrown off by these numbers up top, that's why. But comparing to quarter four just 1 year ago, NVIDIA's operating income was $1.2 billion. So it's now up 983% year over year. You may also notice that NVIDIA is laying out a pretty detailed outlook for the next quarter. Believe it or not, with this earnings growth explosion for NVIDIA, they're still only valued at about 32 times their forward earnings. I wanted to share this as a reminder, so have a look. Just 1 year ago, NVIDIA's market cap was $500 billion. Fast forward 12 months and they now sit at a $1.7 trillion market cap. That means NVIDIA has added $1.2 trillion in market cap in just 12 months. NVIDIA is currently up 8% after hours, sitting at $731 per share. Meanwhile, Rivian is down 15% in after hours trading based on their guidance for 2024. Lucid is currently down 7% after hours. Tesla stock closed the day at $194.77, up 0.52%, while the Nasdaq was down 0.32%. It was an average volume day for Tesla, trading about 6 million shares below the average 30-day volume. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did. You can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.